Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I'm Dr. Asma Siddiq and today I'm back again with the remaining part of the gross anatomy of larynx. The internal surface of the larynx that is lined by the mucosa, and the mucosa of the larynx is mostly composed of the ciliated columnar epithelium, that is same as the respiratory type of the epithelium. But in specific areas, the larynx is covered with the stratified squamous epithelium. These areas which are covered by stratified squamous epithelium in the mucosa are the upper and anterior portion of the epiglottis as well as its posterior surface. So most of the epiglottis is lined by the stratified squamous epithelium. Then is the anterior portion of array epiglottic fold, which is extending from the arytenoid cartilage to the epiglottis. That fold, membranous fold, is also lined internally by the mucous membrane, and it is having stratified squamous epithelium. And on the vocal cords as well, the epithelium is stratified squamous, and rest whole of the epithelium of the larynx is ciliated columnar, you must remember. Then in the supraglottic area, that is mostly having the mucous membrane which extends down from the oropharynx, and infraglottic region that is having same as that of the respiratory mucosa. If you look into the mucous glands which are present, these are found more in the posterior surface of epiglottis, array epiglottic folds, and in the laryngeal cavities. So in these areas, the mucous glands, these are more in number, and that is all about the laryngeal mucosa as whole of the internal surface that is lined by that mucosa and the. So here in this slide, which is showing you the cut section of the laryngeal cavity, that is the inside internal aspect of the larynx, in which you can see that there is this epiglottis, and that is lined by the mucous membrane as a whole internally, which is the cavity of the larynx, lining not only the internal surfaces of the cartilages, but it is also covering whole of the membranes which you have studied. So this is the upper membrane, which is the quadrangular membrane extending from the arytenoid cartilage and runs upward and having the attachment to the sides of the epiglottis. So it is making on each side the array epiglottic folds, which you can see these are the cut ends of the array epiglottic folds, and here there is the lower free margin which is making up the vestibular fold. So above the vestibular fold, this whole cavity of the larynx is known as the vestibule of the larynx, or this is the supraglottic area. And then there is this lower one membrane which you have studied is the conus elasticus, and this conus elasticus is making up, extending from the cricoid cartilage upward to the arytenoid and then to the posterior surface of the thyroid cartilage here. So this one is making up here the vocal cord, which is the upper free margin of that conus elasticus, and rest whole of this membrane is making the cricovocal or cricothyroid membrane. So this one here, this is the inferior and other fold raised by the conus elasticus by its upper free margin, and it is covered and lined by the mucous membrane as well. So this is the vocal folds. So the vocal fold, that area below it, this whole portion of the laryngeal cavity is known as the infraglottic part of the larynx. So in between the vestibular fold, which is the lower free margin of quadrangular or quadrate membrane, and the vocal fold, which is the upper free margin of conus elasticus. In between these two is that portion which you can see is known as the glottis or rima glottidis. So this rima glottidis is the area which is between the vestibular and vocal folds. So only this portion, that is the rima glottidis or glottis. Above this, above the vestibular fold, is supraglottic area or vestibule of the larynx, and below this glottis is infraglottic area of the larynx. So that's how the laryngeal cavity is divided internally into three parts. But now here you can also see that glottis, which is narrow portion here, but laterally, if you can see on each side towards the thyroid cartilage. This is the cut ends of the thyroid cartilage. This is the cricoid cartilage, as you can appreciate here as well. So at the thyroid cartilage towards anteriorly, there is the extension of the glottis, which actually this one is also known as the ventricle of the larynx. That is the ventricle of the larynx, which is the extended portion. This is laryngeal ventricle on each side. It is going to make this out pocketing and this out pouching above into anterior aspect of the thyroid cartilage, that is the saccule of the larynx. So this expanded portion of the glottis, which is anterolaterally, that is making the laryngeal ventricle, and the ventricle, it extends up behind the thyroid cartilage, making this out pouching or out pocketing of that mucosa. This is known as saccule of the larynx. So these portions, I hope you understand. Again, I'm going to explain the laryngeal ventricle, which you are going to appreciate here. That is the cleft or narrow portion between the vestibular fold and the vocal folds, and this ventricle, that is also known as sinus of Morgagni in the larynx. So again here you are going to encounter this terminology. There is sinus of Morgagni, which is also present, and it is also seen in the larynx, which is nothing else. This is the expanded portion, anterolateral expanded portion of the glottis, and here this is the area which is between vocal fold and vestibular fold, and this is making this laryngeal ventricle. Then one out pocketing, and also you can say this is the diverticulum. So one upward prolongation and diverticulum behind the thyroid cartilage from this ventricle. This is known as the saccule of the larynx. So these portions, these are the expansions from the glottis area between vocal and vestibular folds. So coming to the glottis, here you can see that this glottis area, which is between vestibular and focal folds, is divided into two parts. If you are going to divide it into 5 portions, then its 2/5 portion is intercartilaginous part, which is between the arytenoid cartilage. Between interarytenoid cartilage, the space that is known as the intercartilaginous or respiratory glottis, this is the posterior 2/5 area, and then anterior 3/5 area, which is the intermembranous between the vocal fold, that is the glottis vocalis, between the vocal fold. So again, I have already told in previous class that the vocal cord is having the cartilaginous portion and the membranous portion. So that rima glottidis is, again you can say, is having the intercartilaginous portion between two arytenoid cartilages posteriorly and anterior 3/5 more area is intermembranous. So when you look through a laryngoscope, which is an instrument which introduced through the oral cavity, and then you can see the interior aspect of the larynx, then you can appreciate this whole structure, in which you can see there is the area above portion, this one, that is the vestibular fold. Again this margin showing you the vocal fold, and here this area between these two is the glottis, and down this is the infraglottic portion. So that one, this is the portion here which is, you can appreciate the laryngeal cavity inside. You can so after the cavity of the larynx, in which you have seen the three parts, now moving on to the extrinsic muscles and the intrinsic muscles of the larynx. The larynx has to provide the function, and it is performing the function with the help of extrinsic as well as intrinsic muscles of the larynx. The extrinsic muscles you have already discussed, you have studied them. These are the muscles which are the suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscle. Definitely the suprahyoid muscles, these are elevating and moving the larynx above. Why? Because there is the thyroid membrane. So this membrane attachment with the hyoid bone and the thyroid cartilage, that is pulling the laryngeal cartilage along with the hyoid bone upward, because of that elevators of the larynx, which are the suprahyoid muscles. Then is the depressor muscles of the larynx. These are the muscles which are the infrahyoid. Below this one, these are sternohyoid, sternothyroid, omohyoid, pulling the hyoid bone downwards towards the sternum. So also these are depressing the larynx. So that is the mistake, please. This is the larynx, the elevators and depressors of the larynx. And then there are some longitudinal muscles of the pharynx, stylopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus. These are also helping to elevate along with the pharynx. They are also helping to elevate the laryngeal larynx in the human body. So you must remember these are the extrinsic muscle. So whenever there is a question, you have studied these are the suprahyoid and infrahyoid muscle, remember them and mark the table in your book that these muscles are also known as extrinsic muscles of the larynx. So now, the intrinsic muscles, these muscles which all are present in the, which are attached to the laryngeal cartilages, and all of these are present internally except one muscle which is having attachment outside the laryngeal cartilage, that is cricothyroid muscle. Then is the posterior cricoarytenoid, lateral cricoarytenoids, arytenoid, these are the transverse and oblique arytenoids, thyroarytenoid, thyroepiglottic and array epiglotticus. These are the all muscles which are the intrinsic muscle. So here you can also see the muscles which you can appreciate here. The one very easy, which are the oblique muscles, and there are the transverse arytenoid muscles. So their attachments, they are mostly going to attach to the muscular process of the arytenoid. You must remember them. So first of all, if you see at this posterior cricoarytenoid muscle, which is going to arise from the posterior lamina, which is the posterior body aspect of the cricoid cartilage, extending upwards and laterally, and attaches to the posterior aspect of muscular process of arytenoid. Then these are the lateral arytenoid muscles. These lateral cricoarytenoid arising from the lateral part of the arch, which is the anterior now portion, the anterior lateral portion here, the arch of the cricoid cartilage, and then again they are going to attach to the muscular process at their anterior side. So it is attached to the muscular process at anterior surface. You see here the transverse arytenoid muscles which are arising from the posterior surface of one arytenoid cartilage extending transversely to the muscular process of other arytenoid cartilage. They are also attached to the posterior aspect. Then there is the oblique arytenoid, which you can also appreciate. These are arising from the muscular process of one arytenoid, and they are extending upward and obliquely to be attached on the apex of the arytenoid muscle on other side. Again here, other side from here, this is the muscular process of one arytenoid and reaching to the apex of the other arytenoid. So these muscles which are oblique arytenoid extends up into the array epiglottic fold, making up the array epiglotticus. I will show you in next slide. Also the extension of the transverse arytenoid, and the thyroarytenoid is the muscle which is making this vocalis muscle. So moving now forward to show you the attachment by one. So here again you can see this is the cricoarytenoid. From the posterior aspect of lamina of the cricoid cartilage to the posterior aspect of the muscular process of arytenoid cartilage. So these one, the oblique and transverse, they are very easy. I hope you understand very well. Now the other one which I have told you, that the extension of the oblique arytenoid from the apex of the arytenoid cartilage, their slips, they extend into the array epiglottic fold, making array epiglotticus muscle. So the extension from oblique arytenoid is making array epiglotticus muscle. Now here this is the cut end. Here you can see this is thyroid cartilage, and here this is the superior cornu, and this whole is the cut end. Here you can see the thyroid cartilage. So from its posterior aspect, as this you can see this area, from here the thyroarytenoid muscle is going to originate. So thyroarytenoid is starting from the thyroid muscle, thyroid cartilage and cricothyroid ligament. Then this is moving upwards and backwards, and it is extending into the along with the vocal cords, that is making the vocalis muscle, and reaching up to the along the array epiglotticus muscle, making thyroepiglotticus. So this is thyroepiglotticus muscle. So this thyroarytenoid muscle arising from this angle of the thyroid, this angle where two laminas are joined together, making the angle, as I have told you, from the angle of the thyroid cartilage to from its posterior aspect. Then this is extending up as well into the epiglottis, making thyroepiglotticus, attached to the anterolateral surface of the this arytenoid cartilage, making here thyroarytenoid muscle, this one, and extending along the vocal cord here, along the vocal cord, that fibers, these are known as the vocalis muscle. And here you can see this is the posterior cricoarytenoid. So this one is the lateral cricoarytenoid, arising from the lateral side of arch of the narrow portion of the ring of this cricoid cartilage. So arising from here, moving to the lateral aspect of muscular process. This is lateral cricoarytenoid. So you are going to encounter very important muscles, the lateral cricoarytenoid, this one which you have seen. This is the posterior cricoarytenoid. Again here this is the posterior cricoarytenoid. I hope you appreciated it. Oblique cricoarytenoid, transverse arytenoid, then thyroarytenoid giving thyroepiglotticus and vocalis, and oblique arytenoid is also giving ray epiglotticus, right? So from here you can also see the action. If I told about the epiglottis, which is making the laryngeal inlet, it has to open and close. To close the laryngeal inlet and cavity like this epiglottis is moving up posteriorly over this opening to close it. So this is pulled downwards because of this oblique arytenoid muscle giving array epiglotticus. So this array epiglotticus is pulling the glottis towards arytenoid cartilage posteriorly. This is closing the laryngeal inlet. And the thyroarytenoid, which is now going to attach to the anterior surface of epiglottis and thyroid cartilage, it is pulling the epiglottis anteriorly toward the thyroid cartilage. So this is helping to open the laryngeal cartilage. I hope you understand it. Here these are all the muscular process showing you the insertion of the muscles, and this is the area of the attachment of the posterior cricoarytenoid. So as I have told you that the muscle which is controlling the laryngeal inlet, which help to close the inlet because of pulling it backwards on towards the arytenoid, these are oblique arytenoid and array epiglotticus muscle, which is extension from this oblique arytenoid. So these are helping to close the laryngeal inlet. So now what are the muscles which are producing the abduction and adduction of the vocal cords? So this is the vocal cord having the cartilaginous part, vocal process of the arytenoid cartilage, and the ligamentous portion, membranous portion of the vocal fold. So they are making up the vocal cords. So these vocal cords are either abducted. So definitely when they are abducted, when they are wide apart from each other, then they are opening the glottis, which is very helpful for the respiration. So during respiration there must be abducted vocal cords, and these are going to be opened by posterior cricoarytenoid muscle, and this is also known as the safety muscle of the larynx. Why safety muscle? Because this is going to open up the glottis for facilitating the respiration. So this is the posterior cricoarytenoid attached on the cricoid cartilage to the muscular process of arytenoid cartilage. So when this is pulling the muscular process, so keep in mind one thing very important here. Listen to me carefully, please. Attention, I need attention here, that this is the vocal process of the arytenoid where these vocal cords are attached, and this is the muscular process. As you know, the lateral one, anterior-lateral one, posterolateral ones are the muscular process, and anterior-medial are the vocal process. So when the muscular process, which has more attachment of the muscle, this vocal process, if it moves inward, like this muscle is pulling both of these inwards medially, then the vocal process moves outward. So very easily you understand here that the movement of the muscular process and vocal process is in opposite direction. So if I am telling here that this posterior cricoarytenoid is pulling the muscular process of arytenoid towards, like this is the line, follow my presenter, this is the line of pull. So this is pulling the arytenoid on both sides medially inwards towards the line of the attachment of this muscle. So these are widely open, the vocal process. So that's how they are helping in abduction. Again here you can see, if these muscular processes are moving now lateral and outward, then these are pulling the vocal process medially inward, helping to abduction, helping to the adduction of the vocal process. So these vocal process and vocal cords, these are adducted when the muscular process is outward. So again, the muscular process and the vocal process are moving in opposite direction, you must remember. So the lateral cricoarytenoid, which is the having attachment on the anterior side of this arch of the cricoid cartilage, on its anterior lateral side. So this is pulling the muscular process towards that aspect of the cricoid cartilage. So they are pulling the muscular process outward anteriorly, which is bringing the vocal process closer together. So the transverse arytenoids, which is where it is attached, that is pulling both of the from one muscular process to the other. So these transverse arytenoid is also pulling two muscular process outwards. Then this is going to help in the adduction of the vocal cords. So lateral cricoarytenoid and transverse arytenoid muscle, these are responsible for the adduction of vocal cord. So only one thing to keep in mind, that muscular process and the vocal process, they move together but in opposite direction. So mostly the muscles are attached to the vocal process. If the muscles are attached posteriorly, they are pulling the muscle posteriorly inwards, then there is abduction. They are bringing the vocal cords far away from each other. And when the muscles which are pulling this muscular process outwards anterior side because of its attachment of the lateral cricoarytenoid, and then transverse arytenoid is also pulling these two outwards, it is helping for adduction of the vocal cords. So which muscle is the safety muscle? Definitely this one, which is opening the glottis for respiration. So here I would like to show you the action as well as attachments of the cricothyroid muscle. So the cricothyroid muscle, which you can see here, is attached to the lateral border and lateral surface of the cricoid cartilage, extending to the inferior horn, as well as it is attached to the inferior border of thyroid cartilage. So if you see these muscles, they just resemble a tuning fork. So this is also known as tuning fork of larynx. Which muscle? Cricothyroid muscle is also known as tuning fork, extending from the cricoid cartilage to the thyroid cartilage. So this is pulling the thyroid cartilage downwards towards the cricoid cartilage. By this, they are pulling this vocal cord which is attached to the thyroid cartilage downwards as well. So because of this pull, there is the tension on the vocal folds, because the angle that is going to increase. As you can see, this is just in a straight direction. When this is pulling it down, this is going to lengthened, and it is increasing in its distance between the angle of thyroid cartilages and the vocal process. So by this is increasing the length and tension of the vocal cord. So the muscle which is producing tension on the vocal cord, that is the cricothyroid muscle. And the muscle which is decreasing that length, this is actually the vocalis, which is thyroarytenoid. as I have told you that thyroarytenoid muscle is sending the expansions along the vocal cord, and this is the vocalis muscle. So this is pulling that vocal cords by pulling the arytenoid cartilage forward toward the thyroid cartilages. So this is moving it back. That muscle which is pulling, vocalis muscle is pulling it back towards the arytenoid cartilage. So that's how this is going to shorten and relaxes the vocal cord. So this muscle which is producing relaxation on the vocal cord, that is the thyroarytenoid muscle. So the muscle producing tension on the vocal cord, that is the tensor of vocal cord, is cricothyroid. Relaxer of the vocal cord. So in this picture I am going to summarize for you the action of the muscles. Here you can see this is the vocal cord and this is the cricothyroid muscle. The cricothyroid muscle is pulling the thyroid cartilage downwards towards the cricoid, and then this is pulling the vocal cord as well and increasing the tension on it and lengthening it. So this is the tensor muscle of the vocal cord. And here this is the vocalis muscle from thyroarytenoid. This is going to pull the thyroid cartilage towards arytenoid. So that's how these are producing the relaxation on the vocal cord by decreasing its length. So this is the vocalis muscle which is relaxer of vocal cord. Here you can see this is the muscle of lateral cricoarytenoid. So pulling laterally the muscular process, when this muscular process that is pulled anterolaterally, bringing the vocal process closer together, leading to adduction, that is the adduction of the vocal cord. And here when the which is posterior cricoarytenoid, this is pulling the muscular process in the midline towards the attachment in the midline to the cricoid cartilage in this direction, as you can see in the arrows. So by this, these are making the more and more distance between two vocal processes, and that's how they are producing abduction of the vocal cords. So here this picture is summarizing you the action. So now this is the picture of the glottis, that is the area between the vestibular fold and vocal cords, but you can see the most of the action between vocal cords. So in quiet respiration there is a distance between two vocal cords, but when there is a forced inspiration at that time, this is going to become a diamond shape. Its intramembranous portion is, as well as its intercartilaginous portion, both of them become triangular in shape. So this distance, you can see they are giving more wider appearance for forced inspiration. So this is the picture in which this is pink one is the vestibular fold, white one is the vocal fold, and you can very easily see the wide opening of the glottis during respiration. So here in this you can see when there is the phonation during the speech and voice production, the glottis, here you can appreciate this is in the adducted position. So during that I hope in physiology you understand when there is expulsion of the voice through that closed glottis, this is leading to the production of voice. So here you can see these vocal process, they are closer together and they are making up here, as you can see, closing the glottis. But when there is a whispering, there is a small narrow gap between two vocal cords, which is helpful for the. So this is the picture in adduction during phonation. This is the quiet respiration and this is the forced inspiration, and at that time this is widely abducted vocal cords, and these are showing you now the shape of the glottis during different functions of the larynx. Now moving to the blood supply of the larynx, the arterial supply, as we have divided it into the upper and lower larynx, it is from the external carotid artery, basically from superior thyroid and superior laryngeal artery. So external carotid is giving superior laryngeal, and which is moving here, and the superior thyroid. So I think missed that very important point in my yesterday lecture, that this thyroid membrane has one aperture or the opening through which the superior laryngeal vessels and internal laryngeal nerve enters into the larynx. So thyroid membrane has this aperture for passage of the superior laryngeal vessel and internal laryngeal nerve. From the lower side, it is basically supplied by the subclavian artery through the inferior thyroid and inferior laryngeal artery, which is giving branches to the larynx. Again, the venous drainage is same. It is going to be through the superior thyroid and superior laryngeal vein into the internal jugular vein from its upper portion, and the lower portion is through inferior laryngeal and inferior thyroid vein, which is going to enter through the brachiocephalic into subclavian vein. So these are the blood supply and arterial and venous drainage, as I hope same as you have studied in the thyroid gland. So for the nerve supply of the larynx, you must remember that typically the larynx is supplied by the branches of the vagus nerve. So vagus nerve here, if you appreciate, it is giving the superior laryngeal nerve and recurrent laryngeal nerve. The superior laryngeal nerve is going to divide into the external laryngeal and internal laryngeal. So the internal laryngeal, that nerve is passing through the gap and opening into the thyroid membrane along with the superior laryngeal vessels. So this internal laryngeal nerve entering inside into the larynx, that is typically the sensory nerve supply to the supraglottic area. So above the glottis, the sensory supply to the mucous membrane of the larynx is through the internal laryngeal nerve, which is the branch of superior laryngeal. And external laryngeal is typically motor nerve, which is supplying the motor innervation to the cricothyroid muscle. So only this is the muscle which is supplied by the external laryngeal muscle, external laryngeal nerve. Rest whole of the muscles are supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. So the recurrent laryngeal nerve is motor to all the intrinsic laryngeal muscles except cricothyroid, which has been supplied by external laryngeal nerve branch from superior laryngeal. Then this recurrent laryngeal nerve is giving sensory supply to the infraglottic portion of the larynx, which is below the glottis. So you must remember, for the blood supply, nerve supply, and even for the lymphatic drainage, the supraglottic area and infraglottic area. So above the glottis, there is the superior laryngeal vessels and superior thyroid vessel. Below the glottis was the inferior thyroid and inferior laryngeal. Again here the superior laryngeal nerve along with its internal and external laryngeal branches supplying above the glottis, and external laryngeal is motor to cricothyroid muscle. And below the glottis, sensory supply is through the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So for the lymph nodes, the lymphatic from above the glottis, they run along the superior thyroid arteries and vessels to reach to the anterior superior group of the deep cervical lymph nodes. And from the infraglottic area below the glottis, the lymphatic drainage is into the inferior group of the deep cervical lymph nodes. So you must remember the superior and inferior groups of the lymph nodes where the lymphatic drainage is going to drain the lymph. So for the clinical correlations of the larynx, you must remember these certain important points. First of all, there is the nerve damage. So as we have just seen that there are the very important nerves supplying to the larynx is the vagus nerve through the recurrent laryngeal nerve and superior laryngeal nerve. So whenever there is damage to the external laryngeal nerve, which is typically supplying the cricothyroid muscle, so this nerve is leading to the paralysis of the cricothyroid. And we have seen that cricothyroid is the tensor of the vocal cord for the production of phonation. So there is the complete loss of speech, complete loss of phonation because of the damage to external laryngeal nerve, which is leading to the paralysis of cricothyroid muscle. So the recurrent laryngeal nerve, that is either there is the unilateral injury or the bilateral injury to the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So whenever there is a unilateral damage to the recurrent laryngeal nerve, so on the other side the nerve can compensate. So this is leading to the almost only one sided remains in the mid position, midway between adduction and abduction, but the normal sided vocal cord can compensate, and this is leading to the production of the voice, but there is hoarseness. So the hoarseness of the voice that is going to produce because of the unilateral damage to the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and this is producing hoarseness because the other normal sided vocal cord can compensate. But in case of the bilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve damage, at that condition the vocal cords are going to become in position of a cadaveric position. So that cadaveric position, that is the one in which that is almost midway between adduction and abduction, almost this condition is leading to the loss of voice as well as there is difficulty in breathing. So because of the damage to the bilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve, because the vocal cords are in between the adduction and abduction, so we say this is in midway position. So for the voice production we need the narrowing and closure of the vocal cords, which is closing the glottis. So when they remain a bit open, then definitely there is loss of the voice, as well as this is leading to the difficulty in breathing. So respiratory issues are also associated with bilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve damage. So this damage is going to lead into the position of the vocal cord, which is known as cadaveric position of the vocal cord, that is the mid position between adduction and abduction. So please students, for that purpose you need to consult the Snell's anatomy. So for the nerve damage and definitely for the recurrent nerve damage, recurrent laryngeal nerve damage, you must have to consult that Snell's anatomy. They are showing you the effects along with the pictures. So the piriform fossa, as I have already told you, that is the one which is present between the array epiglottic fold and thyroid cartilage and thyroid membrane along the lateral wall of the laryngopharynx. So this piriform fossa is having much clinical importance. Number one, any fish bone, this can stuck and they can lead to enter into that fossa, and that is causing due to the scratch of the mucosa of this area, leading to the pain there. And as well as any foreign body and as I have told you, the fish bone, that foreign body can lodge into the piriform fossa and leading to the dull pain of the viscera because scratching on the mucous membrane due to that bone or either foreign body. Number two, in Indians especially, it has seen that they are utilizing the piriform fossa to smuggle the diamonds or other precious you can say stones they are going to be hidden into the piriform fossa, and then they are going to recover it later. So that smuggle that diamonds and other precious stone by putting them into the piriform fossa of a person. So that's why this is also known as the smuggler's fossa. So you must remember its importance. First of all, that one which is leading to the due to the foreign body or fish bone which can easily going to enter and lodge into that fossa. Then the vocal cords along its surface, nodules can appear where these are going to be utilized too much. So in the singers who are using their vocal cords too much, and also the teachers like us, they are going to have nodules at the junction of the anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3 of the vocal cords. So these nodular appearance can lead to the exhaustion in the voice. So during voice production there will be exertion, as well as they are going to exhaust the person for speaking. So these are mostly seen in singers and teachers. So these are singers or teachers nodule on the vocal cords. Then if there is any obstruction and we need to secure the airway for the passage of the air as the obstruction in the larynx, then laryngotomy can be performed. That is an emergency procedure in which the needle or a syringe that is going to introduced through the cricotracheal ligament. So through that cricotracheal ligament, when the needle is inserted in the midline, or that is also going to be performed through the cricothyroid ligament, which is the area of the conus elasticus. So when this needle is introduced in the midline through the cricothyroid or cricotracheal ligament, then we label that this is laryngotomy. This is just below the thyroid prominence, and that is an emergency procedure to secure the. So I end up with whole of the discussion of the gross anatomy of larynx now, and I hope you understand it very well. And I recommend while studying the larynx you must have to go in a sequential manner. So when you study it in sequence, then it will be very helpful to memorize easily, and also you can make a good concept. So thank you very much.